In this video, I will be covering different methods about how to approach, stack, and breach through a doorway or entryway. Once through the entryway, learning to secure a foothold, and repeat the process until finally securing the entire room or space. These room clearing tactics are for ready or not and aren't always translatable to real life or other games. With that said, let's get into it. I've broken it down into 5 stages. Now the first one is the approach. First step is information gathering. This includes looking at the mission beforehand, looking at blueprints and any layouts of the maps or buildings you'll be entering, as well as any on-site recon when you are in front of the space that you are approaching, either using the visuals you have around you, items like the mirror gun or other such things such as sound or other indicators of information. So also include what step we will take, either our second step, the non-combative approach, or the third step, the combative approach. Second is the non-combative approach. During our approach, we must take into consideration these ideas when doing every one of our steps. We strive to keep our advantages and engage as safely as possible. These things include not going into compromising situations of danger and staying out of areas outside of our area of operation as to not alert other suspects. During this time, we will be using tools such as wedges, shields, and positioning to control the area before we start to work on the door or entryway. Another goal is making sure any open doors not currently under our immediate control will be closed, or at least the minimum covered by our team so that lines of attack cannot open up to the rest of our squad or teammates. Third, in cases where you're approaching a door or entryway and you are fired upon or otherwise compromised, leading to inaccessible breaching or entering of the room, we will skip step 2 of our process and do our third step, the combative approach. Our third step is very similar to our second step with a few key changes. The biggest difference is when the enemy is aware of our presence, either due to our approach being too loud or clumsy, or due to our lack of ability to hide from such enemy sightlines early on. This will also be the likely step when you have already engaged and cleared multiple rooms already, as many of the suspects in the area will likely have heard your entry from previous rooms, making this third step the more common in our approach to entryways. During this approach, certain maneuvers that were safe before will likely become unsafe during this stage. You will also be less likely to use certain deployables safely without proper cover from your team. During our approach to any doorway or entryway, we will always be in a tight formation, making sure not to pass lines of sight of suspects from other angles. This differs from our non-combative approach, where our focus will shift often freely just scanning the area. Whereas in our combative approach, we will be locked on and focus, commonly restricting such movement we would have in step 2, often taking up any cover or positions we have to defend against said attackers. Oftentimes, most formation will break during this period of time. Focus will shift to the attacker to neutralize them, oftentimes even foregoing holding sightlines to eliminate the attacking threat, as it is an immediate threat rather than just a potential one. Now, stage 2 of the process. Once you have gathered information and you have begun approaching and you have been staying in formation, stage 2 is stacking on the door. Now, step 1 of stage 2, at the first moments, the stacking method you will be taking will be likely determined by the intel you've gathered from stage 1, the intel gathering process. But first, we will be seeing if there is any additional information we can gather. This involves using a mirror gun, checking the handle to see if it's locked, as well as simply peeking through the door to check for traps and other threats we might see. Our second step is determining if the door we stacked on even warrants entry, or alternatively, if another form of entry is a better choice. Perhaps deciding on multiple entry points into the room or area if it has multiple entryways. This can be more subjective, as when it comes to certain competency of your team and your tactics, as well as variable information can determine your next move, as the same room can have a lot of changing variables. This includes how your initial approach was, also including any information you might have obtained, like incorrect or lack of information from stage 1, as certain maps might not have blueprints for buildings, or simply the blueprints you have are simply out of date. Also considering any physical changes due to furniture or items blocking or changing the layout of the room. When deciding what room to enter, the most important thing is your capability of taking that room or space as safely as possible. Consider the number of teammates you have, your resources, if the room is large or small, and ultimately if the room will be safe enough to take with minimal to no issues. There can be occasions where diverting to a whole other section of the map will be the better option and the best choice, often leading to backtracking. The primary focus when making the decisions is taking the path of least resistance to minimize injury and, of course, death. Finally, step 2 of this process is repeated as many times until you finally decide which room to begin working on. On to deciding how to stack on the door. The third and final step of stage 2. There are 2 primary common basic methods for stacking. First is the split stack. Split stack allows for an even distribution of firing capability into the room, often giving you flexibility as it gives the most information into the room, each squad member seeing a slice into the room in which they are able to communicate that information to the rest of the group. This is usually recommended for smaller rooms, but often struggles with bigger rooms due to the lack of firepower down certain firing lanes. The second common one, single side stacking, which allows for a large amount of firepower down one lane into an entry. This often requires good communication though, as if one is to attempt to pie to see more into the room, they risk friendly fire. This allows for flashbangs to be thrown very safely when dealing with immediate threats, as the firing line of the squad provides excellent protection due to the physical barrier as well as the firepower potential to stop the threat. Choose which stacking formation best suits the situation based on the information gathered. And now we have decided to stack on the door, and we decided that we are going to be breaching through this door. So now comes stage 3, breaching and entering, or B&E, and no, it's not bacon and eggs. Once you stacked on the door, the next step is opening the threshold. There are many tools for various kinds of entries, as well as many tools for making it easier to enter the room once the door has been opened. When deciding on breaching the door, in stage 2, you will have seen if the door is locked, unlocked with a tripwire, or any suspects behind the door through the crack of the door when peeking through it. Also, if you used a mirror gun, you will likely have seen a large part of the layout of the room, as well as any suspects within it. Each of those factors will decide which one is the best approach when deciding which tool to breach with. Before using any breaching tool, be sure that there is no tripwire. The RAM is excellent to use for quick entry, reusable, effective at fully opening the door. It's also simple and does lack a lot of capabilities of other breaching tools. This is primarily going to be used for when you want to open a locked door that you are sure there is no tripwire and have enough space to allow your team to flow into the room. The RAM is commonly used on metal doors with no established trap when the doors are locked. Now, the breaching shotgun, surprisingly flexible and does offer a lot of safe ways to enter rooms. It is often used for blowing holes through wooden doors, for throwing flashbangs, as well as even being able to disarm traps through the door without having to open the door in the traditional way. Oftentimes the better, more flexible choice. Usually this is the breaching tool I recommend, as it allows for a lot of flexibility. Not to mention it can almost do everything that a RAM can do and more. If you're curious about which one you should take, RAM or breaching shotgun, check out my other video, Ready or Not, which one is better for breaching, for more of the finer details about these tools. This will be a tool used often due to its adaptability to the situation, likely to be the most valuable on doors made of wood, not to mention disarming traps when speed is a factor, blasting open door to set the trap off at safe distances. This is a tool you will use often, and a lot of the time on every door with the exception of metal doors that of course are already unlocked. The third common item you'll be using to breach is C2. Excellent for aggressive openings that allow you a little bit of help when clearing the initial opening of the door, either stunning or killing targets directly in front of the door. Also capable of blowing any door off its hinges, metal or wood, with some minor benefits or negative of destroying any other doors near the initial explosion. Very helpful for when you want the most amount of space and the door to not be a hindrance to your sightlines or squad movement into that entryway. This is an expensive resource though, but it is useful for doors in which you want to open from a distance. Usually this is the best option for making the entryway safe. Pretty much use any time when suspects are near. Put caution around civilians potentially, and just be aware it does potentially open you up to more dangerous lines of threat. Oftentimes the use of a breaching tool isn't always required. Oftentimes it is just more helpful to pick the lock, disarm any traps, then open the door. It saves resources, it's quieter, it's usually the best choice for the start of a mission, as it often gives you time to enter the space before any suspects begin any form of retaliation. Now onto the second step. Once you have identified your tool, you'll be placed within the stack. When using any of these tools, your squad should follow up with any throwables that stun or disorient targets. Using throwables is usually reserved for rooms with many suspects, or if there are a lot of angles in which you are unable to maintain upon immediate entry of the space. The breacher should always have access to the door and a space to retreat behind the squad if need be, depending on your squad's individual procedure and formation. Now, the third step is entering the entryway. When the doors are open, entering may not always be your best bet if the suspects are continuing to fire. Be sure to maintain safety when passing through the entryway. If the suspects are still firing, wait for a decent amount of time before entering or throwing another throwable. Oftentimes, waiting for the first flurry of rounds to end dramatically increases survival rate. Just be a little bit patient. Don't feel obligated to follow suspects as well. They retreat or hide from sight. You really need to be maintaining your discipline in these moments of entry. Otherwise, it's going to lead to a lot of issues. Maintaining discipline is key in these moments of entry, and it leads into our next stage. Stage 4 is pushing and securing a foothold. The threshold oftentimes has countless variables and differences between each scenario you'll find yourself in. The complexities honestly would far exceed the length of this video, but with that said, step 1 is the point man's entry. This can be considered one of the most dangerous aspects of the room, as entering through a small entryway makes it very easy for suspects to return fire to one location. Deciding who goes first is commonly down to the position within the stack, tools, and the health of each individual. Injured teammates with broken ceramic plates commonly will be last through the entryway. Most commonly, shields are exceptional tools for entering rooms, assuming your team is competent enough to protect angles you do not directly face the shield towards. When the point man is making entry, they will be the first one to enter the room, and it's important that they never pass another doorway or hallway into connecting areas. The point man is to direct their focus towards the most threatening area of the room, attempting to kind of temporarily target any active threat in sight. Now, the second step is plugging and filling the holes. This is commonly one of the most difficult things to achieve with a team, as it requires excellent coordination and spacing while staying in tandem with each member of your team. Most commonly, you will have the first person watching the largest threat area of the room. Second step is, depending on the layout of the room, the first person in the stack can sometimes hold their position at the nearest entryway or threshold. If space does not will it, the second in the stack will hold the position the nearest entryway or threshold. Happens down the order of the entire stack until each member is positioned at an angle looking into the nearest entryway or space within the room to other sections that the team has not gained visibility of. Each member will follow suit until every area within the initial entryway has been blocked off by a squad member within the stack, giving them a sight line into their respective areas. This ensures every potential angle and area in the room is covered by a sightline of a member in your team. Each team member, when they have passed the entryway, will fix their sight on an area that they intend to secure and move to that position until they have a visual sightline of that area, enough to allow for protection from that area if a threat were to arise from that location. During this time, while moving towards an existing entryway, if you have increased exposure into any other section of the area, you are to wait for the corresponding member in the stack to cover that angle of threat before moving to secure that position. At every moment during this process, you will have someone covering every potential threat angle to every member. As such, with the concept of cross coverage, if one member is out of sync, they risk threat or exposure to enemy fire without visual cover from your squad member. Staying in tandem with your squad is imperative for these situations. Once every squad member has safely moved to each new threshold's entry point into the surrounding areas, remembering to move in sync, we hold this position for our next step. The third step is the information exchange. Here, we communicate to our team if we need assistance clearing a room or that a room is clear. On this discovery of a clear room, we can move to assist one of our squad members. Oftentimes, when we plug the hole, there might not be enough thresholds for each individual squad member. Commonly, assistance will always be needed to the largest threat area, therefore allowing to reinforce squad members who are already covering existing threat lines. During our information exchange, we will be communicating suspects, potential threats, and eliminating any immediate threats during this process. The squad members or the team leader will then deliberate using helmet cams to see perspectives of each squad member and decide when and where to move. Now on to the final stage. Stage 5, securing the room. This stage simply consists of repeating the previous steps to secure each part of the room, as each part may contain doors, open entryways, or various geometry within the room to navigate. You will use the approach, stacking on the door, reaching and entering, and pushing and securing a threshold stages until you have secured the entirety of every space. While this is the end of the stages of how to clear rooms with basic CQB tactics, there are many more tips during these processes. Many are specific scenarios, other more common scenarios you'll likely encounter through every door. I will likely be making another video covering some of these ideas, as there are a lot of them, and each scenario needs to be judged individually. And one of the biggest tips that I can say and recommend is there are some fights you just won't win. Now, the important thing is to not pick a fight with them. If you know you are going to go into a space that is dangerous and that you do not have the advantage, you will not take that fight. Don't pick those fights that you know you won't win. Oftentimes, if it is a dangerous area, big open space, one doorway into a large number of suspects, you probably shouldn't be going into that room. Obviously, sometimes we don't have a choice as there might not be any other entryway into that room, but it's important that we try to use all of these stages to try to make it as safe as possible. For example, using C2, lots of flashbangs, making sure you are securing all lines of cover, as well as efficiently communicating and knowing the room beforehand, like its layout, its potential number of suspects, the weapons that the suspects might have. All of these things are super important. Simply knowing that there might be hostages in these various situations or even civilians within the area can help you and assist you make the better choice. Anyway, that's it for the video. I will be kind of talking and breaking down more of this stuff. This was a requested video. I commonly will post polls within the YouTube's like posting or community section. If you go to my page, you can go to posts, or you can also just visit the community and you will see all the posts that I'm putting out. A lot of them are usually polls or just updates on if I am busy or something, or just explaining what might be the next video or other things related to things in the future that might come. For example, one of the recent ones that I was posting was when I reach 1,000 subscribers, a lot of people the people who voted seem to want me to analyze their gameplay videos, which would be really fun. I think that'd be super awesome. Also, potentially creating a Discord server for this community. So things like playing Ready or Not, or Door Kickers, or other RPG games, which I'll be covering in the future, and maybe even playing games with each other, having a fun time, and just helping each other out and learn and become better at the games we play. Anyway, that's it for the video. Thanks for watching and have a good day.